From bringing new fans to the game with his numerous wins, to leading the PGA Tour against the breakaway league, Rory Daniel McIlroy's impact on the future of golf cannot be understated. After all, he has been the top dog for the last decade. I mean, most people would consider Tiger Woods to be the guy, who sometimes even transcends the sport. McIlroy, however, is arguably even more important for the game. You know why? Well, because when Woods was caught up in controversy and injuries and suddenly wasn't winning anymore, it was the Irishman who stepped up in his place and became the new face of golf. Oh, and yeah, he won plenty of stuff while doing that too. Of course, his first big impact was at the 2011 US Open, when he went 6 under and won by 8 strokes. And after that, he never looked back, winning 4 major championships in the next few years. Now this, along with the fact that he was from Northern Ireland, attracted a ton of new fans to the sport. People in Europe absolutely loved him because they felt like he was their guy, and fans in America were just in awe of his brilliance. Like sure, even when he wasn't winning majors after the initial run, he was still winning a bunch of PGA Tour events. So much so that ever since his first professional win in 2009, he's barely ever gone through a year without winning. Plus the fact that he continues to perform at the highest level to this day. When the sport doesn't have many veteran leaders to fall back on, it's also important. After all, not only does that bring in even more new fans, but it also keeps the old ones engaged. Even if you keep the success aside though. The sheer cultural impact that McIlroy has just can't be ignored. Like sure, he has obviously promoted the sport a lot in Europe, especially in his home country, Northern Ireland. However, even beyond that, he's done so much to help underdeveloped regions around the world. For starters, he's an ambassador for UNICEF Ireland and has visited disaster-struck places like Haiti to offer his support. Plus, he's also an ambassador for PGA Junior League Golf, which, of course, means that he's gonna be there, inspiring the younger generation to get better at the sport and be successful like him. Not to mention, he's an MBE and has made appearances in some massive TV shows like the Grand Tour. The point is that this guy is everywhere, and whether people love golf or not, they're gonna notice him and maybe think about watching the sport a bit more. With that said, there's a reason why Rory McIlroy is so culturally relevant to this day, and that was his time at the top of the official World Golf Rankings. Now, fans of every individual sport have this hyper-focus on who's at the top of the official rankings at any given time. But what Rory has done over the past decade has changed the game for even that. Like again, it's not like he was winning major championships every year. What he was doing, however, was staying at the top of the golf rankings, which automatically made him an ambassador for the sport. Seriously, this guy had his face plastered all over the official PGA Tour and European Tour campaigns. Oh, and yeah, he had his name on the official PGA Tour video game for a brief moment too, which, if you don't know, is a big deal. I mean, only the most successful athletes get to have their faces on a video game cover. And the fact that Rory managed to replace Tiger Woods meant that he was again the new face of golf. In fact, a lot of people don't like to include him among some of the greatest golfers ever. But you've got to remember, this guy has spent over 120 weeks as the #1 golfer and is one of only 3 players alongside Nicklaus and Woods to have won 4 majors by the age of 25. Like, if that doesn't inspire confidence in young golf fans outside of the US, then I don't know what will. The truth is, McIlroy is a role model in every way, because he's never even had any major controversies. And that, in and of itself, also makes him extremely marketable. As a matter of fact, in 2013, Sports Pro rated him the 3rd most marketable athlete in the world after Neymar and Messi. Now, everyone and their grandmother knows about Tiger Woods, who honestly is up there with the likes of Tom Brady, Messi, and Michael Schumacher. But if you look around the golfing landscape, there really aren't that many other athletes who could transcend the sport and be that popular. Well, except for Rory, of course. This guy has the sort of energy and charisma that just attracts people. He's super approachable, likes to crack a joke, and has that sort of enthusiasm in him that brings in the big brands. Like where Tiger is the slow-walking menace on the course, McIlroy is the guy who bounces all the way to the green, which just shows he's having a great time, regardless of how he's playing. Again, very attractive for brands, which shows in his multiple endorsement deals. In 2013, he agreed to a $100 million contract with Nike, and in 2017, he signed a 10-year extension for $200 million. Not to mention, he's also got a $100 million equipment deal with TaylorMade to use their clubs, ball, and bag. In many ways, he's one of the few golfers on the planet with that sort of pull. At the same time, however, he's opened the door for other golfers to get these deals as well. After all, when sponsors enter the sport and see a good return on their investment, they tend to expand their horizons as well. In fact, many new golfers are actually trying to mimic Rory to get similar sponsorships. Seriously, if you want to look at the way he has impacted the sport, all you gotta do is look at the new crop of golfers coming through the ranks. You'll find that a lot of them are on the more laid-back side, like the Irishman, and like to be positive around the course. Because again, charisma sells, folks. Even guys like Jordan Spieth or Jon Rahm are a lot closer to Rory than they are to Woods, which shows you just how much he has shifted the dynamics of what it means to be an elite golfer. Oh, and it's not just in the way that he presents himself, because people are even trying to copy Rory's technique. You know why? Because he's got one of, if not the most stable swings in the entire game. As a matter of fact, even Tiger Woods tells his son Charlie to mimic the Irishman's swing, which is absolutely wild. I mean, say what you want about his success or his major championships. One thing that you cannot take away from him is that he's the perfect golfer in terms of his style and technique. In fact, he's the guy they're going to use as an example to teach new golfers how to swing. Oh, and don't even get me started on his putting game. Like, did you see the 71-foot eagle putt he made in the 2023 Wells Fargo Championship? Insane! Having said that, though McIlroy's success, his sponsorships, and his technique have massively changed the sport's future. It's his leadership that makes him such an impactful figure. Now, the Irishman has always been a very outspoken person. But while he didn't initially get involved in much PGA Tour politics early on in his career, he is probably the most important asset that they've got these days. For starters, he is a bona fide leader and knows the ins and outs of the game and the tour's operations. In fact, he received votes from his fellow players to become the chairman of the PGA Tour Player Advisory Council in part because of this. After all, when McIlroy speaks, everyone listens. Plus, it's not like he hasn't used his growing influence within the tour for his fellow players. Seriously, whether it's the proposal for a better player impact program or taking the tour's side against the breakaway league, Rory has always been at the forefront of change on the PGA Tour. Oh, and speaking of the breakaway league, Rory McIlroy's fight against LIV Golf has actually changed the fabric of the sport. I mean, even when it was called the Premier Golf League, the Irishman was very vocal against it, talking about how it's not great for the game. But apart from his usual feuds with LIV CEO Greg Norman or his rants about how the league is damaging the sport, McIlroy is the reason why the PGA Tour is currently ahead of the upstart league in this fight. Why? Well, it circles back to his leadership ability. Because he was the guy who convinced PGA Commissioner Jay Monahan to increase the prize money and bring it up to LIV Golf standards, which of course was one of the reasons why a lot of golfers left the tour in the first place. Not to mention, he's also leading the new technological golfing revolution alongside Tiger Woods. With the indoor TGL Golf League that's supposed to forever change the way golf is played, I mean, whatever way the game goes over the next few decades, I'm sure we're going to see elements of Rory's character in it. So, from leading the PGA Tour against the breakaway league, to bringing new fans to the game with his numerous wins, this was Rory McIlroy's impact on the future of golf.